So, if you are gearing up for your MBA exams right now, you know exactly what we're looking at today.
Yeah, we are tackling those strategic management notes, specifically Chapter 8.
Right. And our mission for this deep dive is to basically take all that dense, heavy academic material and actually decode it.
Make it memorable. Make it sticky.
Exactly. Because nobody wants a boring study session.
Yeah.
We want to figure out the actual playbook here of how businesses win or lose in the real world.
Which is fascinating, honestly, because memorizing definitions won't save you. Knowledge is really most valuable when it's understood and applied.
Yeah, you need to understand the why behind it all.
Right.
So we have a clear blueprint for today. We are focusing heavily on the big three topics for the exam. That's positioning of the firm, Porter's generic strategies, and the risks in competitive strategy.
The absolute pillars.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before a firm can choose a strategy like how to play the game, it first has to define the actual arena, the playground.
Yeah, the industry structure. And we should clarify a definition here right off the bat from the source material.
Good idea.
There's a difference between corporate strategy and business strategy. Business strategy is your competitive strategy. It's guided by the broader corporate strategy.
Okay, so corporate is the big picture. Business is the boots on the ground.
Exactly. And the source defines an industry as a collection of firms offering close substitutes.
Close substitutes, which sounds simple, but you were saying earlier that precision here is basically everything.
Oh, it really is. If you get the industry definition wrong, your entire strategy is flawed.
Like how?
Well, think about Coca-Cola versus Pepsi. If you define their industry as the broad beverage industry, you are suddenly analyzing milk producers and tap water.
Right, which isn't helpful at all.
No, it dilutes the competitive analysis. You have to define it precisely as the carbonated soft drink industry.
Oh, wow. Okay. That makes sense. Actually, the text has this check your progress question that perfectly illustrates this.
The Vodafone one.
Yeah, the Vodafone example. So for the listener, think about this actively. Which industry is Vodafone a part of, and what are its features in India?
And if you say they're in the phone industry, you've already failed the question.
Right, because they don't make physical phones.
Yeah.
They're in the telecommunications service industry or, the cellular network provider industry.
Exactly. And once you draw that specific boundary, you can look at the 4 elements of industry structure.
Right, which are concentration, economies of scale, product differentiation, and barriers to entry. Let's hit concentration first.
So concentration is just how a few massive firms dominating sales actually lowers competition over time.
Wait, lowers it. You'd think a few giants would fight harder.
You'd think so, but they realize price wars just hurt everyone's profit, so it stabilizes.
Got it. And then there's economies of scale.
Right. This is crucial. It's the cost savings per unit you get when you produce at a massive volume.
Which allows firms to charge lower prices and basically scare off anyone trying to enter the market.
Exactly. Which ties into product differentiation, where perceived differences in products intensify the competition among the existing players.
Okay, and the fourth one is barriers to entry, the obstacles new players face. But let me push back on this for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
If a company is already inside the industry, right, like they are already an established player, why should they even care about barriers to entry? Isn't that just a problem for the new guys trying to get in?
That's a common misconception, but high barriers actually protect the existing players. They protect your market share.
Oh, so it keeps the annoying startups away.
Exactly. It gives you the space to achieve those vital economies of scale without constant disruption. If we connect this to the bigger picture, your barriers are basically your castle walls.
I like that. The higher the wall, the safer the castle.
Right.
Okay, so now that the industry boundaries are drawn and we see the castle walls, where exactly does the firm stand inside that arena?
This is where we get into our first major exam focus area, the positioning of the firm.
Right, the competitive positioning. The material defines this as the choice of differential advantage a product possesses against its competitors.
And it is a very specific 2-stage process. First, you identify segment gaps, and second, you identify your positioning within those segments.
Unpacking segment gaps.
Yeah.
That's basically finding the areas that are poorly served by current products, right?
Yeah, finding the empty spaces. But, and this is a huge but, not all gaps are attractive.
Because maybe nobody wants what's in that gap.
Exactly. Some gaps completely lack any clear advantage or profitability, so you have to evaluate them carefully using a 4-step positioning process.
Which is a huge memorization anchor for the listener. Let's list those 4 steps.
Number 1 is perceptual mapping. This is a qualitative research phase.
Qualitative, so we're asking people how they feel.
Exactly. The source uses dimensions like strong versus weak, cheap versus expensive, modern versus traditional. You map out how consumers view the market.
Okay, and step 2 is positioning.
Right, which just means placing all the existing brands onto that conceptual map you just drew.
So you can visually see where everyone is sitting. Which leads to step 3, options development.
Yes. Using your own existing strengths and weaknesses to devise entirely new map positions. Finding that profitable gap.
And finally, step 4 is testing.
Right. You experiment with simple statements first and then move to real market testing.
I always think of this like finding a seat in a crowded MBA lecture hall.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right. You don't just sit anywhere.
Yeah.
You scan the room. That's your perceptual mapping. You spot the gaps, maybe a seat where the professor can't call on you or right in the front if you want to participate.
Yeah.
And then you test if the seat is taken by asking the person next to it. But wait, does this mean positioning is entirely dictated by the customer's perception rather than the product's actual features?
Yes, it relies heavily on perceived differentiation. That's why the testing phase is so critical. What's fascinating here is it's an ongoing experiment with actual and potential customers, not a closed-door laboratory decision.
So the engineers don't get to decide what the position is, the market does.
Exactly. Perception is reality in strategy.
Okay, so we found our spot, we know our position. Now the firm needs a weapon to actually defend it.
Enter Michael Porter.
Yes, his seminal frameworks from his 1980 and 1985 books. This is our second massive exam focus area, Porter's generic strategies.
And Porter claims there are really only 3 fundamental strategies to overcome the 5 forces of competition.
Just 3.
Just 3. Cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. Let's start with cost leadership.
Okay, cost leadership. The concept here is delivering products at a lower price than competitors by minimizing direct input and overhead costs.
The absolute no-frills approach.
Right. And the requirements to pull this off are intense. You need massive economies of scale, highly effective engineering, purchasing, and manufacturing.
And the text explicitly notes that marketing is deemed much less important here.
Because the price is the marketing. The source gives a few examples like Deccan Airways, Timex, and Nirma.
Yeah, and you can see how this works best with highly standardized products.
Right, where consumers will switch easily just based on price. If a ticket on Deccan Airways is $50 cheaper, I'm buying it. I don't care about the branding.
Exactly. But if you can't be the cheapest, you might try the second generic strategy, differentiation.
The shiny one. The concept is offering something uniquely perceived by the customer, which allows you to charge a premium price and build brand loyalty.
And that loyalty actually acts as a massive entry barrier for competitors.
The source gives some classic examples of this. Hero Honda, Nike, Asian Paints, Nokia with their individual designs,
Sony using reliability in tech.
Mercedes-Benz using their product service image, and McDonald's.
Yes, McDonald's is a fascinating one.
Here's where it gets really interesting. McDonald's differentiates using Ronald McDonald and the Big Mac imagery.
Right.
It's not just the physical burger, right? It's the imagery, it's the feeling.
Exactly. It requires creative flair, strong R&D, corporate reputation, and you have to accept extra costs for advertising.
Because building that image is not cheap.
No, it's not. And here is the crucial expert analysis point for the exam. The premium price you charge absolutely must exceed the cost of the differentiation.
Otherwise, you're just bleeding money to look cool.
Precisely. If it costs you $10 to make the burger look unique, but you can only charge $2 extra for it, the strategy fails.
Okay, so we have cheap and we have unique. What is the third strategy?
Focus strategy. This is targeting a specific niche, maybe teenagers or old people or rural areas, to the complete exclusion of everyone else.
And there are 2 variants of this, right?
Yes. Cost focus, which means being low cost but only in that target segment, and differentiation focus, which is being unique only in that target segment.
Why would a company use this instead of the broad ones?
Porter argues that sometimes achieving industry-wide low cost requires funds the company just doesn't have, or broad differentiation is too expensive.
Or it just lacks credibility. You can't offer ultra-high-quality premium products and cheap discount products under the exact same brand name.
Right. It ruins the brand perception.
Wait, But can a firm pursue both low cost and differentiation at the same time, like successfully?
That is the exact dilemma the source's Check Your Progress question asks. Porter originally saw these as strictly mutually exclusive choices.
Like you have to pick a lane.
Exactly. But the source's fill in the blank section actually mentions hybrid strategies.
Ah, so combining the generic strategy.
Yes, it's rare and incredibly difficult. But some firms do find a way to offer differentiation at a lower cost position.
Okay, so these strategies sound amazing, but if they are so powerful, why do businesses fail all the time?
Because every single strategy has a specific Achilles heel, which brings us to the third exam focus area, the risks in competitive strategy.
Right, no strategy is guaranteed. The source says sustainability is the major issue. Let's look at the risks of cost leadership first.
The obvious ones are imitation by competitors or sudden technological changes that wipe out your cost advantage.
Or cost focusers who achieve even lower costs in a tiny niche.
Yes, but the key exam concept here is this exact phrase, loss of proximity in differentiation.
Loss of proximity. That sounds like MBA jargon. Break that down for the listener.
I will explicitly spell this out because it's vital. The low-cost product still has to meet a minimum standard of acceptable features.
Okay.
If it becomes too cheap or the quality gets so poor that the consumer feels it's useless, the strategy completely fails. You lost proximity to what is acceptable.
So you can't sell a car for $1,000 if the doors fall off on the highway.
Exactly. No one will buy it, no matter how cheap it is.
Okay, what about the risks of differentiation?
Again, imitation is a big one. Or the features you differentiated on just become less important to buyers over time.
Or you dilute the brand identification by trying to appeal to too many people.
Right. But the key exam concept here is the flip side of the last one. Loss of cost proximity.
Loss of cost proximity. Okay, so if the price gap between the standard product and your unique product gets too massive, buyers will just say, I like yours, but not that much.
Exactly.
You're basically providing uniqueness that they just aren't willing to pay for.
You priced yourself out of reality.
Got it. And what about the focus strategy? What are its risks?
Imitation, again. Or the target segment just completely disappears or structurally erodes.
Like selling pagers to doctors when smartphones come out. The niche just vanishes.
Right. You can also be outfocused by an even narrower competitor. Or a massive industry-wide competitor might suddenly decide to target your niche with their superior resources.
Oh man, the sleeping giant wakes up and crushes you.
Yeah. And the last risk for focus is that the segment preferences might just merge with the broad market. What made your niche special suddenly becomes mainstream.
And then the massive companies sweep in. Okay, so looking at all of these, which risk is the most lethal?
Well, honestly, imitation is the shared risk across all three. It highlights that competitive advantage is almost never permanent.
It's always decaying.
Yes, which raises an important question. How dynamic must a firm be to actually survive?
Which perfectly transitions us to the next section, poking holes. The critical assessment of Porter. We've learned Porter's rules, but real-world markets don't always play by them.
They definitely do not. The generic strategies assume a stable industry.
And nothing is stable anymore.
Right. In dynamic markets, massive adaptations are needed. The source cites Moore from 2001, who notes that these generic strategies basically just act as defense mechanisms against the five forces.
And Henry II outlines some strict, logical, and empirical problems with Porter's framework. Let's run through these criticisms, starting with the critique against cost leadership.
It asks a very simple logical question. How can there be more than one cost leader? It's a contradiction.
Yeah, if it's the absolute lowest cost, only one company can hold that title.
Exactly. Plus, competitors can just catch up in the long run. Technological changes ruin cost positions instantly, and permanent price reductions can severely damage your market positioning. You just become the cheap, low-quality brand in people's minds.
Ouch. Okay, what's the critique against differentiation?
It assumes that differentiation always requires higher prices, which is just too simplistic. A firm might differentiate purely to increase their market share while matching low prices.
Right. And doesn't it also say that Porter completely fails to explain how to differentiate?
Yes. It tells you to be unique, but gives zero actionable advice on what form that uniqueness should actually take to attract customers.
It's like saying just be funny.
Yeah, but how?
Right. And what about the focus strategy?
The critique there is that the distinction between broad and narrow is completely murky. Is it based on the size of the market, the customer type? It's easy to say find a niche, but generic strategies offer no real help in identifying a worthwhile niche.
Plus, in fast-moving markets, like anything internet-driven, rigidly sticking to these generic strategies means you miss major fast-moving opportunities.
You're just too slow.
So Porter fired back at all this,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. He published a defense in 1996. He separated basic strategy from what he called operational effectiveness.
Operational effectiveness, like TQM, total quality management, or outsourcing.
Exactly. He argued that things like TQM are just operational tools to run the machine better. But basic strategy, choosing costs, leadership, or differentiation, is deciding where the machine is actually going.
So even if you are moving really fast and efficiently, if your strategy is wrong, you are just running efficiently off a cliff.
Exactly. And the source reminds us that while they are flawed, Porter's generic strategies remain a crucial foundational starting point for analyzing strategic options.
They give you the vocabulary to even have the debate.
Yes.
Okay, let's bring this all down to earth in our final section, making it happen. The business tactics.
Because if strategy is the grand vision, tactics are the boots on the ground making it happen.
The text says tactics work with strategy to fulfill goals. It's the actual steps taken, the advertising, the marketing. It lists 4 main ones. Let's look at brand management.
Brand management is about communicating the corporate philosophy and establishing a solid reputation. It involves doing research and polling to see how the public actually perceives the company.
So if my grand strategy is differentiation, my tactic is brand management.
Absolutely. That relationship is direct. A brilliant differentiation strategy formulated in a boardroom is completely useless without the tactical execution of brand management to communicate it to the public.
Because if nobody knows you're unique, you aren't unique.
Right. The second tactic is diversification versus specialization.
Okay, diversification is expanding your scope, like mergers or adding new divisions.
And specialization is narrowing your focus to improve quality or drop unprofitable lines.
Which sounds exactly like the tactics you'd use to support a broad strategy versus a focus strategy.
Exactly. They align perfectly.
The third tactic is research and development, R&D. The source says this is creating new product tech to either save money or excite consumers.
Which is incredibly crucial for large manufacturers. It dictates whether they can maintain cost leadership or keep their differentiated edge.
Right. And the final tactic is risk management.
Making good, calculated decisions on where to invest funds and focus products in highly unpredictable markets.
Because as we learned, the market is always shifting.
Always.
Well, this has been an intense journey. Let's recap for the listener who is about to walk into that exam.
Good idea.
We started by defining the precise industry arena, understanding that boundaries dictate everything. Then we talked about finding a profitable spot through competitive positioning, mapping out those segment gaps.
Yes.
Then we chose our weapon from Porter's 3 generic strategies: cost leadership, differentiation, or focus. We anticipated the specific fatal risks of that choice, like losing cost proximity.
Right.
And finally, we talked about executing that grand vision via concrete business tactics like brand management and R&D.
It all connects. It's a complete ecosystem.
So what does this all mean for you? It means you have the actual frameworks to dominate that exam.
Sure.
You understand the gears under the theory.
But I want to leave you with the final lingering question that builds on the source material we just covered.
So let's hear it.
We talked heavily about the risk of market preferences suddenly aligning with the broad market, destroying a careful focus strategy.
Yeah, the curse of going mainstream.
Right. But if your entire competitive positioning relies heavily on customer perception, what happens when a massive global event radically shifts what customers value overnight?
Oh, wow.
Are static generic strategies enough to survive that shock? Or is the true ultimate competitive advantage simply the speed of your tactical adaptation?
Wow. That is a massive question to think about. Good luck on your deep dive into the business world, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll catch you next time.